Hello, hello, and welcome to the Color Whisperer Show, where we talk about things home and healing. Today, we have a special treat for you. We have a guest. It's Michael with Ascended Heart Studio, and he is an artist and a storyteller. And much the way I believe that beauty heals within the home, he creates jewelry and other things that are very artistic, and it is all part of healing. So, welcome, Michael.
Hello there, Jeanette. Good to see you today.
Good to see you too. So tell me a little bit about how you got started on this path of creating. Well, maybe let's start with your story first because you do a lot more than jewelry, and I wanted to let you tell that part of it.
Well, I was born in Ketchikan, Alaska. I am Simpshan and Tlingit, two of the tribes from that region. And growing up there in the 70s, I never saw much of the traditional art in our family homes. The only time we ever saw it was in the tourist shops or in the museum. And late 70s or so, they changed the laws in the United States that allowed the natives to do some of their ceremonies. And people started really reinvigorating the traditional ways.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't really get into that much until I got into my 40s and really started to try to reconnect with my heritage and learn about that. Um, I always felt a connection to the medicine man type of archetype, and knowing that what comes with that is an awareness and understanding of pretty much everything that goes on in the village. So I started doing the artwork. I started creating cloth things, applique, uh, button robe that we wear in ceremony, and different things to try to understand where our heritage came from. And over time, I also started connecting with a recovery movement called the Red Road to Wellbriety. And when you talk about healing and wellness, this movement really helped push me in that direction. They say you can be clean and sober and still not be well. So
That's
the
true.
a lot of the recovery that people do, um, they're basing it on how long it's been since they've imbibed in one of these things that they were addicted to. But for us, it becomes more about learning your culture. And we say culture is recovery. And so the more we learn about our ancestors and the more we um, honor and respect the ancestors and the traditional ways, the more our well-being grows. And so what I have done in going to Sweat Lodge and participating in different ceremonies when I was in Washington State, I learned some techniques that were not necessarily Simpshan and Tlingit, but were part of the Lakota, the Nakota, the Blackfeet. When I was in Arizona, I connected with the Yavapai Apache, the Navajos, and the Hopi people down there, and learning about all the traditional ways of the people um, really has been the focus as far as well-being for myself, but also I think for the world around us. And as we move from the the civilization that we live in, um, they say the the big lie is that it's not actually very civilized.
Mhm.
And so we need to remember how to be human, that we are human beings, and we remember how to be human and how to live in a community where we we take care of each other, where we respect each other, and where we're responsible for our own actions and how those affect other people. So yeah, I make jewelry. I don't know if you can. No, I didn't put them in today. I make jewelry. I make hand drums. Um, I've recently taken up playing the flute, trying to help with that energy. You know, kind of calm yourself and calm the world around us. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing, and the beginning of my story.
So I'm interested in this, the Red Road to Wellness. That's not what you said. Road to Wellness is a movie, but um, I have a couple friends who have been sober for a long time, but they're still addicts, and they've just changed the addiction to
Mhm.
something that is not as harmful as what they were addicted to. So I went to one of them had their 25th anniversary, and I went with them, and the ceremony of AA is a beautiful one, and I can see that it does a lot of help. But when we got done, he asked me, "Well, what did you think?" And you know, my healing background, I think that AA keeps you stuck in the mess, and it's not really helping you. You know, it helps. It does help a lot of people. I'm not knocking it, but the element that I saw was not going after the root of the problem. They were just talking about it. And my experience in healing is that talking about it doesn't fix it. You need to excise it. You need to get to the awareness of why and what, and then you're able to release it from the body. But if you're just going to keep talking about it, it's not releasing. So
Yes.
can you compare this road to
The red,
Wellbriety? Is that what you say?
yep. Red road to
Wellbriety.
well-briety.
Can you
Well-briety,
tell
yeah,
me a little bit more about that?
absolutely. Um, years and years ago, I was at a sweat lodge in Washington State, and an elder who actually happened to be from Alaska. He was from the same village that my grandfather was from, and I looked for him to kind of help me with that reconnection. He was handing out Wellbriety books, and of course, he gave his last one away right before I got to him. So I ended up having to buy my own copies. But he was leading a talking circle. And the idea with the talking circle is very similar to the idea with the sweat lodge. Um, we all go and we get in a circle, and in the circle, nobody is the leader. Nobody is better. Nobody is in front and nobody is behind. We're all next to each other. We're all equals. In the sweat lodge, we go in and we sing and we offer prayers. Um, One of the things that we learned was that we don't pray for somebody else's healing, but we pray for ourselves to be strong, that we can support them through their healing.
Hmm.
Um, in the talking circle, we come into the talking circle, and we similar to the sweat lodge, we smudge off with some sage. We pass around, we have an opening prayer, and then we pass around an eagle feather, and everybody that whoever is holding the feather, they're the only one that's allowed to be speaking at that point, right? You know, like a talking stick for most events. um, but the idea is that the addiction is they say it's a disease, and I don't know that I believe that. I don't know that the Wellbriety movement actually believes that. I think what we understand it to be a side effect of the trauma that we experienced when we were young, or maybe not even when we were young. You know, some of my trauma came when I was in my teens and even in my 20s. And so when I go into the talking circle and into the sweat lodge, the idea is that when we speak about those traumas, we vocalize it, we feel it in our vocal cords, and we hear it in our ears. And that makes it real. And we're not just, as John Trudell said, we're not just beating ourselves up inside of our head and it's spinning around and getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it never goes away. So if you can get into a circle like that where you're vocalizing your bringing that trauma to the surface, that you're acknowledging it, you're forgiving it, and you're letting it go, and you can move on. And at that point, the need for the addiction goes away. So one of the things that I've learned when I've gone to even some Native American run AA circles, they do it in the circle, they have the feather that goes around, but they're still locked into their addiction, where they believe that they're broken, they will always be broken, and that the only thing that they can do is just, as they say, let God handle it. Well, I really agree with letting the Creator handle everything and appreciating what the Creator does for us, but I don't believe that I'm broken. And I do think that when we acknowledge those traumas, we vocalize them, we can move beyond them. And that's what it really comes down to, is acknowledge it and forgive it. And then you can move forward. And one of the other things about the Wellbriety that they talk about is you have to, even if the person isn't there and they don't get your forgiveness, the forgiveness is more for you and your own heart. But you have to also understand that those people that did whatever it was that traumatized you, that happened to them. And they wouldn't have done that if they hadn't been taught that that was an okay thing to do. And so what you have to do is you have to forgive the next layer. And you have to forgive it back to the beginning, to the whoever started that initial trauma that stepped down and down and down through the generations to where we are today. So you have to take that forgiveness all the way back. Which is a lot different than going to the AA meetings. I have been to a few. When I first met Uncle Charlie at the Sweat Lodge, I asked him, I told him in the around the fire before ceremony, I said, you know, I've heard about this and I'm interested, but I've never been an addict. I've played with a lot of goofy things, but I've let them go. I put them down after a while. I stopped having fun with it. And I said, okay, I'm done with that. And he said, well, Wellbriety is not about the addiction. It's about the recovery. And we are all in recovery. Every one of us is in recovery. And so we need to work through it that way. So at that point, you know, I told him that I wasn't sure if I would be welcome at one of these meetings because I've never been an addict. I didn't understand that mindset. And when I have gone to those AA meetings, generally what you find, and I think this is what you were talking about, is that there's a lot of people sharing their war stories.
Mm-hmm.
And you go into the meetings with that mindset that you want to share your war stories because that will help other people to recognize where they were in relation to where everybody else was and understand that they're not alone in that. Right. But I think with Wellbriety, it's much deeper than that. It's about sure, the war stories can be a good introduction, but
it can keep you in victim mode too.
Exactly. You're always going to be broken. And I don't agree with that whatsoever.
No. And I do see, I do energy healing work, and I've worked on a couple people who, and they say that, we call them spirits because it is an open door to let, spirits in. And I've seen those spirits, and they can lay dormant, and they maybe they don't go after alcohol, maybe they go after sugar or shopping or something else, but
Mhm.
the mindset that is still there.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah.
grace.
I had a I had a friend once that she had been clean for a number of years, but then she started buying those little Japanese cups that are made with the heat and burning, and they've got great patterns in them, and she had to have a new clean date because she had gotten addicted to purchasing those. And that you like you were saying,
Yeah,
you find another
addiction
thing.
it doesn't have to be alcohol anymore. It gets into something else.
Yep. And
And
each of
alcohol is
those,
sugar, so you start eating a lot of sugar. You haven't fixed the alcoholism. You've just moved it.
yep.
Or you
And
haven't fixed the addiction.
the hard part for a lot of people with the changes in society is that the cigarettes. People went
Mm,
from drinking and drugging to the cigarettes, and so now
mm,
everybody in the AA room has been used to for forever to be constantly lighting a cigarette and lighting a cigarette and lighting a cigarette and going outside and having a cigarette. Well, that's the addiction still present in their psyche that but it's okay because it's not as harmful as what happens when you drink
right.
and get yourself into a car accident or get a DUI or when you do the other drugs and destroy your body. I mean, there's some talk that tobacco is detrimental to your health. I know that tobacco can be a sacred herb that can be used in healing. Um, but what big tobacco has done with all the chemical additives that they put into those sticks, I think that they've taken the sacred away from the tobacco.
And when tobacco is used as a healing agent, you're not smoking a pack a day either. I mean,
Correct.
it's moderation, just like anything else. It's not, my experience with doing is, you take one puff on the pipe. That's not a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah.
So it's a whole big difference. And again, as we know, intention's everything.
Yep.
And that doesn't make what's happening with cigarettes okay. Oh, this is good for my health, okay, puff
Right.
puff. But the ceremonies I've been in, and it's you just take like a puff on the pipe, and that's far from even taking a whole cigarette, let alone. So it's not, it is a ritual, and it is not an addiction by any means.
Yes. And with the Chanupa ceremony, um, you're not inhaling.
Mm,
You're pulling a puff into your mouth. You're putting your prayers into the pipe, and everybody that's part of that ceremony is sharing their prayers, and the smoke that you exhale is taking that prayer up to the Creator. Is the way that I understand the Chanupa ceremony. So you're not taking a big old long puff or like you would a toke off of a marijuana pipe. You're
right.
you're you're participating in the prayer and you're sending those prayers to the Creator so that the Creator can help, however that may be.
Yeah, it's very different. So another big part of your story, and I don't remember if this was part of your story or part of a movie that you told me about, so I apologize. But I but we were talking about how they indoctrinated a lot of the Indians, and they took them from their home and put them in schools, and some of the schools the Indians died. And this is part of you're bringing awareness to this and bringing back the story of the Indians and bringing back their culture. So can you go into a little bit more detail on that?
Yes, absolutely. When I was growing up in Ketchikan, this is the 70s and the 80s, we were pretty much past the boarding school situation. I went to public schools in Ketchikan and in Anchorage, Alaska, and I was a normal kid as far as that goes. What had happened 100 years, 150 years before that was the government and the church set up these residential schools, where they took the children starting at about 5 years old, and they took them 100 miles away or more from the village. And I know that there was a general, I think, that was leading this, and the mission was to kill the Indian but save the man. So they were trying to wipe out the culture. And the best way to do that, and it's the same today with the modern Prussian education system, but it was done hardcore back at that point, where they took the children away from the community. So in a traditional tribal community, the child is raised by family. Everybody is able to guide the child on how to be a good human being and how to live in harmony with the world around them. And when you take the child into a boarding house, a boarding school 100 miles away, they've got no influence except from the administrators there. And there was a lot of abuse. I have heard some just horrendous stories of abuse. And one of the things that enlightened me to what was going on in the past was the Red Road to Wellbriety, the whitebison.org company that they were going around with talking circles to different places that the boarding schools had been, and they were allowing the survivors to share their stories. And so again, this is part about vocalizing it and acknowledging it and forgiving it. And there was one story in particular that just every time I see it, it just breaks my heart. But there was a young girl, and she talked about she came into the house, and she was so proud that she was learning her language, and she spoke in their language. And her grandmother was there, and her grandmother slapped her across the face and was like, "Don't you ever do that. Don't you ever do that." And this talking circle happened about 15 or more years later. And the young girl shared her story, and grandma was in the circle. And when the feather got around to grandma, she shared how when she went to the boarding school and she spoke her language, and the nun at the front of the room told her not to do that. You don't speak that. You can only speak English here. And she didn't even know English. She only knew her language. And when she continued to speak in her language, the nun called a man into the room, and he had a knife, and he chopped one of her fingers off. And it happened again. And so here's this grandma who for her whole life has been missing two fingers, and nobody knew why, because she never talked about it.
Wow.
Until that moment in that talking circle where they were both able to share two perspectives on this situation. And the situation came from the trauma, the extreme trauma that happened in those boarding schools. And again, we've found later, and what started me on my really on my quest, I have this other project that I'm working on. What started me on that was when I started learning about the unmarked graves at the boarding schools. And so the word, the policy, the official word from the powers that be is that they were so far away from the villages when these children died, they just buried them at the school rather than sending them home. Why did the children die when they've got like unmarked graves at the school? I mean, how many schools have graveyards? But this was common at many of the boarding schools. And this started, my people, my Tsimshian ancestors come from Canada, British Columbia, just south of Ketchikan. Ketchikan's the first Alaskan city as you go up the coast. So my Tsimshian ancestors went to the Kamloops boarding school, which was the first school that they started finding these unmarked graves. And they took the ground radar things, and they were finding what they thought were bodies under the ground. So I know that this goes back to my people specifically. But yeah, at one point there was the idea that there were at least 10,000 of these bodies at boarding schools across Canada. Have they done that ground radar here in the U.S. around the Carlisle schools around in the U.S.? I don't know, but this was happening about 5 or so years ago when I and sitting in Sweat Lodge, you know, learning about these stories and dealing with that trauma again. As we sat in Sweat Lodge to try to understand how to move past it.
Wow. I mean, that's just
fascinating story, Michael. I've actually got it ready to bounce. Was popping in to let Jeanette know that, but I'll be wrapping y'all up once I get on the bus and everything. But I actually have some Native ancestry as well. My the powwow circuit stories as well, because one of them is one of my in-laws is an Apache by birth, and then my relatives, my cousins, are Halawa, which is part of like the Cherokee tribes, and all along those lines. So I'm very much familiar with some of these stories, but that was very powerful. I hadn't heard as much about that, and you're right, a lot of these Carlisle schools haven't been researched and everything like that. So I'm going to let y'all get back, and I'll wrap y'all up with the Kindu Spice after I get done and everything into my destination, but I'll let y'all continue with a very powerful story.
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
and this is why it's so important to tell these stories, because I mean, we weren't taught this in school. I mean, yes, we knew that Americans did some bad things to the Indians, but we were never taught the full extent of it. You know, we went to the missions, and the missions, in California anyway, I don't know if you have to do this up in Alaska, but in California, we have the missions that go up the coast of California, and they're I forget if it's a day's walk or a day's ride apart from each other. So the idea is that you could walk up the whole coast and have a place to stop and rest and but it was also a way they were Catholic, and they took the Indians and they built the missions, and I'm sure there was very little regard for the Indian culture as such. They were trying to, and you go back in history, like the priests who did this. Now, the cutting off fingers and stuff, that's not okay in any way, shape, or form. But many people during this time, like, oh, we're teaching them God to save their lives. And it's like, yeah, but are you taking away their culture? And there's a lot of beauty in the indigenous cultures. Their relationship with the land is something very precious that I don't know if we quote unquote Americans ever really had. Not in the same way, anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so you're bringing these stories back to life, and you're bringing out. Can you show us some of your artwork and show us how you're telling these stories?
Well, the main thing that I've been working on in my project, well, I'll show you this. This shirt that I'm wearing is a combination of what I learned from the Red Road, the four directions, but the four crests on there are the wolf, the eagle, the whale, and the raven. And those are the four crests of the Tsimshian tribe. And so what I did is, through learning about my own heritage and learning about the Red Road to Wellbriety, the four directions was a southern tribe's teaching that wasn't part of what we did up north. But because we had four crests in our tribe, I thought it was only natural to combine the two. So I did the research on
Can you
those.
go back a little bit and explain to us what the four directions mean and what the four crests mean? Because not every, I mean, I have some knowledge, but most people aren't going to be aware of this.
Well, in the four directions, we look at the it correlates with the fours, basically the four elements, the four directions around us. There's the four medicines that we use in ceremony: the sage, the cedar, tobacco, and there's one more that I can't think of right off. But and what you see
Water?
behind my
Is water one?
no, the water is one of the four elements, but
Okay.
not one of the four sacred herbs that we use in ceremony.
Okay. And the
Wheatgrass.
four directions, oh, wheatgrass. Okay. The four directions are north, south, east, and west, but they mean,
Yes.
each has a meaning as far as kind of the way a Catholic goes to different saints for things. The four directions have different purposes as well.
And it all correlates with the symbologies of those. North, well, east is where the sun rises. So when I built my wheel, now I've seen many tribes use the medicine wheel and they place the colors in different spots, and they do that what's logical for them. For myself, when I started making this, I put the yellow on the east because the yellow is where the
Okay.
sun rises, and the red in the south because the heat of the day as the sun goes over, and then the darkness of black comes in, and then the top, the north is the white. Now I come from Alaska, and we think of it as the Great White North. It's always snowing up there, so that fit for me perfectly. And I did the symbology of the animals that are part of the crest, and I tried to align their symbology with the symbology of the colors of the four directions as I had put them on the wheel.
And what do they mean? What's the symbology of them?
Um, the eagle is we say that the eagle flies highest and allows us to connect with the creator. He takes our prayers up to the creator. That's why we hold the eagle feather when we're in the talking circle.
Okay.
We put those prayers into the feather, and then that is that goes up to the creator and helps to get our prayers to the creator. The whale they think of as very similar to the bear as a mothering type of a spirit. That is in the heat of the day, the nurturer. The darkness, the raven. The raven is is well, the story of the raven. The raven was originally a white bird, and in the times when there was no light on the planet, when it was dark and there were people, but they were living in darkness, the raven went and he tricked the creator, or what we would call grandfather, into sharing these treasures that he had. And then the raven tried to steal the treasures, tried to fly out the smoke hole in the lodge, and his wings were full with these things, and he became covered in soot, and he became the black. But in order to get out, he had to release those things, and the sun and the moon and the stars went into the sky. So it was natural for me to put him on the black because he was a white bird originally. And again, I have that right here, the
Nice.
raven on black. And then the wolf for me is it's kind of that calm time of the year. It's about winter. The four seasons go along with the four directions, and the white would be winter. And I think a lot about the wolf and in the north, and being a kind of a majestic type of a spirit like that. So that's kind of the way that I went into combining the Wellbriety teachings that I got with the Tsimshian teachings that I was born from.
Very nice. Is the whale like, and when you go back east, the whale at one time they used the oil, they used the meat, they used the blubber. Was that also true in Alaska? Is that a large source of life giving elements?
In northern parts of the state, the north and west coast of Alaska, they still do whale hunting. These would be the Yupik and the Inupiaq Indians of the far north. I don't think they have as much resources in those regions as where I come from in the southeast. In Ketchikan, in learning the stories of my history, I don't hear much about whaling. I do know that down in Washington State, the Makah Indians on the peninsula, the Kitsap Peninsula in Washington State, they actually do still hunt whale on occasion. But that wasn't something that I learned about through my Tlingit or my Tsimshian or the other tribe that's very local to there is the Haida people. I don't remember any stories about them harvesting whales. They had seal, they had the salmon, they had deer, they had a lot of other food sources that I think that would have just been unnecessary. Easier food. As I see behind me here, there's a flag that I have. We take the four directions, and you see those on the flag, but you also see above the blue for Father Sky and the green for Mother Earth. And the purple heart in the center is where the Creator connects us all together. And so that's what you see with that seven-pointed star. That's the spark of the Creator that connects all of us human beings together and connects the whole world together. But that seven directions flag is another piece of art that I created based upon the teachings that I've learned from the Wellbriety movement.
Wow, that's really beautiful. We're going fast on time, but I want to make sure you get to show some more of your artwork. So you have jewelry, you have the drums, you have the pictures. So let's spend a little bit of time and you can tell us the stories with each one.
Well, I'll show this one here. This is the main project that I'm working on these days. This creature here is it's called a Kushtaka, and it comes from my Tlingit heritage, and it's based upon a land otter. Now, the original story was that the land otter a land otter had rabies and it bit somebody, and it caused their brain to go a little bit screwy in the head, right? We've always heard that. I've never seen it in person, but we've heard that story since we were kids about rabies. So the land otter story, over time, it evolved into a shapeshifter that could
Mhm.
hypnotize people and make people see the world differently than it really was.
Hmm.
And the story that I had heard, one of the stories that I had heard was a young man is out on his first fishing expedition by himself. He's in a canoe and he sees a beautiful woman on the shore and he's like, "Oh my God, I got to go meet her. I don't know, you know." So he takes his canoe over to the shore and he goes to meet her, but it's not a woman at all. It's one of these shapeshifter creatures that is
Mhm.
showing him what he would like to see in order that it can convince him to leave his community and join it and become a Kushtaka.
Mm.
So my theory with this, and I came up with this sitting in the sweat lodge about 5 years ago, um, is that our world is under the control of this deceptive energy that has us living in a not so good way. And
Definitely.
if we can get back to the traditional ways of our ancestors, then we can get back to living in a good way and step away from what I call the corporation that runs the governments from above. Capital C corporation. There's everybody complains about all the corporations, but they don't see the one above that controls everything, and that's the
Yeah.
Kushtaka. So really been my focus um, over the last few years, and I've done that design etched in copper. Um, I've got it on paintings. I painted it on canvas as well as on drums. And when people buy this drum here with the Kushtaka story on it, um, my idea that I have and what I've been told by somebody, I was at a vending one time and he said he has closed his eyes and he was just seeing that every time that this drum gets struck, it's putting that energy out into the world to help people see
Mhm.
beyond the veil, see beyond the deception that we're all living under. And so the idea is that the more I can get this out there into the world, that the more people that are going to see and maybe step away from that
Deception.
false, yeah, the deception.
That's really beautiful. Can you
So
talk a
that's
little bit more about the sacredness of the drum and what that means to as part of your story and as your culture?
absolutely. We think about the drum as being um, the heartbeat of Mother Earth. And when I drum, I'm uh, I'm not I'm not a hippie in a hippie drum circle doing the fancy rhythms or anything like that. I'm mimicking the first sound that I heard when I came into this realm, and that would be my mother's sound, my mother's heartbeat above me as I was growing inside of her. And so when we go into the sweat lodge ceremony, we are going into what they call the Enipi, and that is symbolizes the Mother Earth's womb, and we're going in there to be cleansed and
Mhm.
reborn. So when we go in there and we play our traditional songs, we're we're not getting fancy with the drum. We're just doing the heartbeat, and that's our connection. That's the spiritual part, the connection to Mother Earth, and trying to just get rid of all of that craziness that goes on in the world around us, and we can sit in there and get calm and reconnect. You know, we talk about when we're in those ceremonies that the ancestors come in there with us and they're there to support us. So again, what I had said earlier about being in there and giving our prayers, um, I just ask this the creator and my ancestors to help support me as I try to support the people around me that need that. And so all of that comes from um, That's the drum and the songs that we sing, and when you go into powwows and you hear the drumming at the powwows, again, that's a very very similar thing. They're trying to reconnect the with the ways that our tribes used to do it.
So if somebody's interested in this, or maybe like you, somebody wants to, they've got the Indian heritage, how do they find out about all this?
Um, well, whitebison.org is the company with the Wellbriety movement, and they have a lot of really good books. Like the AA has their big book. White Bison took the 12-step program and they put it in a circle. And so as you go around the medicine wheel, um, you've got 4 quadrants, and each of the 4 quadrants takes 3 steps of the AA movement and puts them in a circle. So you work your way around the 12 steps that way. Um, uh, I have found that pretty much every native community has a talking circle going on. That the Wellbriety movement has been going on since the late 80s, early 90s. I will share one more. I don't know how much time we got, but I want to share one more thing about Wellbriety movement. When Don Koyas first started this program, he had been doing AA and it wasn't really giving him what he needed. And he went to the elders and he asked them, what can I do? And they said, we want you to gather 100 feathers, 100 eagle feathers. And he didn't know why, but he put the word out and people were sending him, they'd get an envelope and all it would have was a 1 eagle feather in it. And over about a year, he started thinking he was getting pretty close and he counted them up and he had a few more than 100. And so he went back to the elders and he said, okay, now what do you want me to do with these? And they said, we want you to make a hoop. And we want you to hoop the 4 directions. And we want you to hang 25 feathers in each quadrant. And then what we're going to do, and they had a big meeting where they brought spiritual leaders in from around the world, from the Sami people of Northern Europe and African tribal elders from Africa and the Tibetan monks from Asia, and then the red people of the Americas. And they said, each of those quadrants, you're going to put a prayer into that section for that color.
Oh, wow.
And so the first prayers that were put into the hoop of 100 feathers was by the Black people of Africa, and it was the prayer to forgive the unforgivable. And that's where it all starts, with the Wellbriety movement and with getting better as a species. I don't even want to say as a race, but as a species, that in order to become well, we need to be able to forgive the unforgivable, because otherwise we end up, like you said before, in a victim state, right? We need to get.
The thing is, when you hold on to that emotion, it literally makes you sick. And
Yes.
and I've been there, I've dealt with it, and some of it was emotions I didn't even know I was holding on to. And it's like, it's very popular right now. People are saying, oh, the man in power makes me sick. And a friend of mine, she was like, this is the last term, every time I talked to her, she just went on and on about how she couldn't stand it. And 6 years later, she got breast cancer. And she asked, well, it's been 8 years. Yeah. No, 7 years. Anyway, she asked the doctor, when did this start? And the doctor gave her a timeline that fit with when she started saying, and that's a part of our vernacular. I don't care if you like him or hate him. The thing is, she made herself sick because she kept saying, this makes me sick. Well, we should never say that, because we're literally creating that. And it's like, no. And then we say, oh, I can't stomach this. well, that means we can't digest it. It's too much for our bodies to handle. So it's all part of our vernacular, but we're not really listening to what we're saying, and we're not really acknowledging what we're actually saying. And so nobody should make us sick. We don't want to think about it. We don't like what they're doing, but why give them that much power over you?
Yeah.
And so there's an element of forgiving them is really forgiving you. I mean, there are people who have had some really tough, traumatic moments and tough parents, and it's like you're not forgiving them because you're letting them off the hook. You're forgiving them so you're letting yourself off the hook.
Yeah.
And that's what I think people really aren't aware of, is how much when we hold on to that trauma, it destroys us
Yeah.
physically, mentally, emotionally, and there's no point in hanging on to that. And so the more you're able to release that in whatever way fits, fits your beliefs, I guess is a good word, or your rituals, we got to release that, because holding on to that just creates a shell of hate, and that's going to destroy.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people that they become their illness. They identify with their illness.
Oh yeah.
It's who they are. I am a cancer survivor.
Right.
And I have this illness.
Right.
And it always makes me think of that story that John Lennon talked about with his grandma, where she said, "You don't ever say that you're sick. You're
Mhm.
getting well. I'm getting well. I'm healing from
Yeah.
whatever it was that was bothering me last week. But I'm not that. I am never that thing." I see the sun's coming in here. It's starting to get bright.
No, we have to be very careful when we say I am, because we are creating that. We are
Yep,
absolutely creating that. And we want to make sure that what we're creating is what we really desire.
absolutely.
So our words are very powerful.
I desire.
I love what did you call the Kanishu, can you say it again?
Kush,
The otter?
the Kushtaka.
The Kushtaka.
Kushtaka. Yeah.
I love the energy of that, because I feel like for a long time we've had a little bit of the emperor has no clothes about a lot of things. Okay, some people can, oh, it's this. No, there's been a lot of things that the emperor has no clothes on, and people get stuck in rhetoric, and people get stuck in well, I believe this, so therefore it's true. Like just recently with Charlie Kirk's death, there was a lot of people that, well, he said this and he said that. And I was like, did you actually listen to what he said?
Yeah.
And people got mad over stuff that they didn't even really know what they were mad at.
Yeah. No,
The media said XYZ, and I'm like, well, did you read the whole quote? Well, the media said that, so it must be true. And that's just one of many, many, many examples. But we need to have our eyes opened. We need to lift up this veil and see the emperor has no clothes on, and we need to call it out.
And the Kushtaka, they one of the biggest influencers of the Kushtaka at this point is, and most people have never even heard of it, is Operation Mockingbird.
Okay.
Operation Mockingbird was a CIA program that was started in the 50s and 60s, where they were putting journalists in newsrooms around the planet, and they were guiding the narrative through the news stories that people were getting. In about 1975, the Church Commission exposed Operation Mockingbird. And when the executives were asked, do you have any CIA agents on the payroll of national 6 p.m. news agencies, they said, we would like to answer that in a closed door session. So they didn't say yes, they didn't say no, but they took the next part of this to the commission behind. Now, this is Congress. They took it behind bars. So later on in the early 80s, when George Bush was the vice president, he said that they would no longer have journalists on CIA payroll. He said he did not say that Mockingbird was being shut down. He said they would no longer be paying them with CIA money. And right about that same time period, CNN started, and USA Today came on. And so when this thing with Doge this last year about Doge and all the money with what is the all of the money that they're funneling through the NGOs. I've been saying for years, I worked in the newspaper business in the 80s, 90s, and up until about 2013. I saw the news firsthand in production, and some of those things that I saw, there's no way that they could actually be true, but I put it in the paper because that was my job. Yeah, I often wondered who was paying those salaries of those people that were influencing the newspaper. Who guided that?
Well, we have Citizen Kane. When was that when was that up there? I mean,
yeah, that was.
And when you control the news, you control what goes on. And I remember going to the cathedrals in Europe, and when you are lower down where most people height, all looks pretty, but when you start going up higher, they're showing you, like, here's the Pope doing something he shouldn't be doing. Here's the local father doing something he shouldn't be doing. They were depicting that. And I was a literature major first, and there was there's something called the Bayeux Tapestries, and it's when William the Conqueror conquered England. It's 1066, and he had the nuns, that they took some nuns and he put them in a French monastery, and they had to sew a tapestry that told the story, because they didn't read back then. They told the tapestries. And the same thing in this, like, that they told the story that he wanted, but in the margins there's other things that wasn't necessarily what he wanted. So he couldn't stop them from putting that in there. It's who tells the story. We went years ago, I was like 12. We went on a tour across the South, and we saw a lot of Civil War stuff. And my dad tells this story because, first of all, he was very interested in it. And to me, it's like, you've seen one hardtack, you've seen them all. I mean, they started running together. I mean, it's like, okay, that's a uniform, that's a piece of hardtack. And I love history, but it did get a little overwhelming. And so as we were going across the South, we went to Gettysburg, and we went to a few other places. And then there was a place that we went that was not run by the US government. It was actually run by the state. And the story was very different. And my dad started asking questions because the story was a little different. And that's when he found out it was actually run by the state. And history is written by the victors. I mean, that's the way it is. It's always been that way. It's written by the victors. And who tells the story? It's like if you get in a fight with somebody, right? I mean, you have your truth, they have their truth, and somewhere in the middle is what really happened. And their truth is not necessarily, the opposite side does not mean that their truth or that they're lying. It's just, it's a different experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, we are at time. We could go on and on, but
Yeah.
I want to give you a few minutes if there's anything else you want to show or tell us how to get to you, and so people can
Well,
participate in this wonderful story that you have.
I do have a storefront online where I put a blog up there about RV living, about reconnecting with my heritage, about the Kushtaka Behind Bars project. My idea is that the more people that that become aware of this deception, that we will be able to put the Kushtaka behind bars. That's why I put him in this. Getting a little bit bright out here. Can't hardly see it right now, but this all of that stuff is at ascendedheartstudio.com. My title here on the screen says Michael Dominic, Tsimshian artist, and that is my at Instagram, and that's where I show the artwork as I'm creating it, where I talk about all of these types of things, where I do vend when I make my art. I sell it mostly at powwows. So if I'm going to be doing a powwow or an artist market, that's the place that I normally will announce that ahead of time, is on Instagram at michaeldominic.simshanartist. We are in the Northeast right now, so I am looking to connect with the local tribes up here and connect with talking circles that they're having up here. I have led talking circles in the Pacific Northwest and participated in them when we were in Arizona, so I haven't made that connection here. That's something that I'm really looking forward to. If anybody that's watching has connections to local talking circles, powwows, and Inipi lodges, it would be greatly appreciated to pass that information on. And that can be done through either of those spots, the Instagram or through our website. The stuff that I create, the art, the T-shirt that I have with the 4 directions on it, I have a lot of other print to order things that are available from ascendedheartstudio.com, and you make your order and they're delivered to your home by the end of next week. So it's a
Nice.
really good way for us, as we're RV traveling around the country right now. We can't keep our product with us, so I connected with this company that will print it on demand and get it to wherever the people want it.
Print on demand's a good thing.
Yeah, so that's
Do you
kind of
have
the way.
something to say, Mark?
No, just a very powerful story. I was listening to y'all the whole time as I was traveling, getting to go to the Cultural Arts Center that I work at, the Hayti Heritage Center, which is an African American cultural arts center. But we've had some native tribes that we definitely recognize, that we stand on the land that is Tuscarora land and other land as well, in terms of the native culture, because we even talk about that sometimes when we do our presentations and all along those lines. So it's always good to honor those that came before you, including those that were of the First Nation and all along those lines. So it's something that we do, everything like that. So I know it's about time for Kendu Spice, but I just was saying that except for maybe a minute or two from getting from point A, which is home, to the bus stop, I've been listening to y'all and have been learning about the artwork and all the great work that you're doing, Michael. So was really impressed, and hopefully Janelle will have you back on at some other time as well. But definitely a great conversation, and you're a good storyteller. But a lot of folks in the First Nation oftentimes are.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. Hey, Jeanette, can I end with just one more thing?
You betcha.
I'd like to share my language. I don't know much of it, but they say the more that you speak your language, the more that your ancestors hear you and connect with you and stay with you. And the Tsimshian and the Tlingit people, we both have a different word for what we use to say thank you. And it means the same thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean just thank you. It means without you, this moment would not have been possible. And in the
That's beautiful.
Tsimshian language,
Mark,
we say,
can you mute? Mark, hang on. Mark, can you mute yourself? Mark, Mark, can you mute yourself?
Yep, I can do that. I can do that.
thank you, Mark.
I think I can.
So, in the Tsimshian language, we have a word that's Indoykshin nusum, if you're speaking to more than one person. And this means, without you, this moment would not have been possible. In the Tlingit language, the word is gunushchish, and it has the same meaning, though. So it's a way of saying thank you, but it's much deeper than that. It's a way of showing honor and respect to the person that you're relating with. And I appreciate that we were able to have this connection today. So I say
That's so beautiful.
and Gunushchish and both of my root heritage languages.
And without you, this moment would not have been possible either. I thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Jeanette. Thank you, Mark.
All right, Mark, let's go get some Kendu spice. Because we got to eat healthy. It might take him a minute because he's doing it all from his phone. But Kendu spice is a wonderful.
People love to enjoy food and don't understand how to flavor their food or how to replicate a meal. They're interested in supplements but don't know where to begin. Well, what I do is I take the guesswork out of enjoying flavor and wellness with my flavorful spice blends so that they can create delicious meals with healing benefits. Kendu Spice was created to help cooks at any level enjoy healing through food. Every spice blend was designed to give added health benefits of natural herbs. Every blend is complete. There's no need to add any additional spice for a delicious meal. Saving you time and money while adding supplements to your meals can be both tasty and fun. My earliest memories in the kitchen began with my father, Kenny Kendu Bond, so it was fitting that I would name this line after him. I have always looked to natural remedies to supplement the body, and I found myself hiding herbs and minerals in foods for my family. That's when it hit me. Everyone needs Kendu Spice. Everyone should be having this. It's an exclusive brand for cooks at any level who want to create flavorful dishes with healing benefits that can satisfy the body and soul. Add a little spice to your life. Give Kendu Spice a try.